Hey everyone, it's the GenZ3, and today we are sitting down with a very special guest. Today we have Josh Boschee with us, and he is here to answer a few questions.
Hey, great to be with you all. I'm looking forward to the conversation and connecting with more Fargoans.
You've only been mayor for not even a full month yet. You've had a few things going in right away. What kind of surprised you the most when you started taking office?
Yeah, it's been a fun 3 weeks, and the key card still works, so they haven't turned off my access to City Hall yet. But I think what's been most interesting is we're just starting the budget process, which can kind of be a dry thing to get involved in. But what I've really taken away from it is our city leaders and the team Fargo, they really are trying to do as much as they can for the citizens of Fargo with as little resources as possible. And, we're at a time where people are concerned about budget constraints and what does that mean for property taxes and such. But I just walk away from every one of our budget conversations learning something new about Fargo and in terms of the magic behind the curtains of what happens with our city employees. And I'm just thankful for all that they do.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty different this year. I mean, this is the first time they've had a full-time mayor. What's kind of the differences between that and what we've seen with past administrations?
Mayor Mahoney and Mayor Wallaker and Mayor Furness before, previously, I think they all put in full-time hours. It's just, It wasn't compensated at full-time. And so with the city making that difference, it allows someone like me who's younger, who still has, bills to pay, I'm not retired, or, have a job that might pay a little bit more, the ability to go from one profession to be a full-time mayor. And I'm loving it. I'm loving having just one job at this point and digging in. But, what I think we'll see across the city, and my hope is to use that extra time to get out in the community, make sure that we're engaging with Fargoans wherever they're at. A lot of times we expect people to show up at City Hall, but I'd like to get out more into the community and whether it's meet them at the restaurants that they eat at or the activities that they do or just in their neighborhoods like I did during campaigning. There's a lot of different perspectives and, I think overwhelmingly people love this city, but they have ideas about how we can continue to grow and be even better.
So do you feel like having the full-time compensation is going to allow you to put more into the position?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a real estate agent, broker, and so just the idea of trying to balance the needs of the city and the priorities of being there for the residents of Fargo, but then also if I had to, if I was only a part-time job and still had to help sell houses and help people find their new home or sell their home, that just wouldn't be fair, I think, to either side. And so I'm just really excited to dig right in.
Yeah, awesome.
Is your background with real estate, what was that about? Were you business focused or was it more like housing?
Yeah, so it's evolved. So when I got elected to the State House in 2012, I was working in higher education. So worked with college students, specifically around leadership programs and student activities. Absolutely love it and hope to get back on a college campus again someday. But
you've got plenty of those.
yes. But I didn't want my students to have to wait on me. Going back and forth from Bismarck and the commitment to taking care of the folks that I represented in District 44. So I started looking for a job that provided flexibility. And I had a friend who was in real estate, met with him. He convinced me to come on over and work with his team. So I started out with sales, helping people buy and sell. I still do that a little bit and weaning off of that. But the last, since 2019, I've been a broker. So that means that throughout the state of North Dakota, I have about 120 real estate agents that I help support in a variety of markets. And so as they help buyers and sellers, I help support them.
Okay. That's great to know. Because I was always kind of curious because one of my questions is housing affordability. Yeah. And that's a huge kind of thing that you focused on with your campaign. What do you kind of see? What's the biggest challenge that, us Fargoans are facing with housing affordability? Yeah,
well, there's a variety of factors, and especially now wearing the hat of Mayor Fargo, trying to figure out what lever or what role does the city have in addressing housing affordability. And certainly we can't, we aren't responsible for the price of labor or lumber as those things continue to get more and more expensive to build a home or to build a multifamily apartment. But looking at how can we partner with, some of the spaces we have in the community, whether it's parks, schools, city land that might be able to be put into what's called a community land trust. So it helps reduce that initial cost to a homeowner. How can we work with infill to work with great partners like Habitat for Humanity and Rebuilding Together and other groups that are already doing all of this work and just help give them the tools that the city might have access to. And so I'm looking forward. It's going to be a robust conversation over the fall of really bringing people together. You know, and for a lot of folks through the campaign trail, I learned, you know, my generation was, you buy a house, it helps you build your family wealth, and you keep moving up and you know, and creating that generational wealth. Well, a lot of folks don't even want to necessarily own a home. They like the idea of renting, whether it's a single family home or apartment. I learned that as I listened throughout the campaign. And so it's also then, how do we make sure that housing is safe for folks, regardless if they're buying their home or they're renting their home? And so, again, really digging into some of the renters issues as well.
And Fargo has plenty of neighborhoods that you can focus on. I mean, we're constantly growing, so there's a lot that we are going to see from you. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, well, and I think anytime the city in the past has tried to engage our Fargoans, whether it's the Go 2030 plan, the core neighborhood plan, the pedestrian and bike plan that's been put in place, people really get engaged. And that's what excites me about the job, is really, again, getting out, engaging our neighbors, our friends and our family to hear what they think of whether it's about affordable housing, public safety, what does, you know, growth inside of the community and out as we grow out look like. You know, people love this city and they really want to be a part of it. And you know, there's challenges we're facing. But again, I think every time we've faced a challenge in our community, we've risen above it and been able to tackle it.
Do you want to talk about some of the
Yeah. So, I mean, you were talking about, you know, Fargo people love Fargo. And we want to know, why are you passionate about the city of Fargo and its people? Like, you know, obviously, if you were running to become mayor, you must love Fargo. So tell us why.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've really gotten to know the city in a couple of ways. First of all, you know, I came here to NDSU in 2000 and continued to stay here, working my first couple jobs. And as I got involved in the community, I found that you know, our community is a place where people can get involved if they want to. And so I started to get involved in some social justice issues. You know, got appointed to the Fargo Human Rights or Relations Commission at that time. It transformed into the Human Rights Commission. So that was my introduction to how you can work with the city. And as I got more politically involved, you know, ran for office, and being able to represent Fargo in Bismarck was just an awesome opportunity, because, you know, there's so many great things happening here. And you know, especially when I was elected, it was during the Bakken boom. So a lot of great things were happening out west as those communities were trying to define themselves and figure out, how do you manage this really quick growth? But Fargo has always been that steady Betty for the state. You know, whether it's our tax base and what we bring to the state, you know, there's booms and busts with our commodity-driven economies, but Fargo has always been that bedrock. And so why I love this community, you know, I think first and foremost, people have an opportunity to have a voice, and I want to make sure that City Hall continues to represent them. But we are a community that people are choosing to call home, whether they're from North Dakota, or we're seeing even more from other parts of the country, or even the world, where people are calling Fargo home because of the opportunities that are abundant throughout.
And that's with like all the colleges too. You know, it's university town, but it's also where you can go after you go to university. It's not just school, move on. It's a really good.
That's a good point, because I after college I moved here. Like, I chose to move here. I had all the options in the world, and I chose Fargo.
She went to Crookston.
Yes, I went to school in Crookston, so not far away, but I could have moved anywhere. You know, I guess as the GenZ3, we're trying to appeal more to younger audiences, and we want to know how you plan to appeal to the younger generations of Fargo as the new mayor.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think just getting out to the activities and the events that the younger generation is participating. You know, I turned 44 this year, and so I'm an elder millennial. So from a millennial to the Gen Z, but a young mayor. You know, millennial mayor. But it's so I find myself sometimes, you know, almost saying kids these days, right? So your generation and what, but I, you know, really want to try to understand, because I'm really putting what I value and the things I think are important. Again, things like homeownership, but I got to better understand what the next generation really wants in this community. You know, I think there's a lot of shared things that we would have intergenerationally, but you know, what else is needed? What would make Fargo even better to keep young people here, to help them start their families, start their businesses? Because the other thing is we know that you're more mobile. You're willing to pick up and head to somewhere else, right? And I want to make sure we keep you here, and you bring more and more people here from your friends and family and networks and such.
Love it.
So, we did look into your campaign and kind of what you're passionate about through your website. And we saw that you enjoy downtown Fargo, as do we. It's the home of the forum.
I mean, we saw you at the street fair.
Yeah. But we also know that many people have a very strong aversion to downtown Fargo. So we want to know if you have any plans or hopes to kind of change the stereotype and the reputation and outlook on downtown Fargo.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is we just need to expose downtown to a lot of folks. I tell the story of there's a business owner in downtown Fargo. She owns a coffee shop. And visiting with her many months ago, she buys a lot of her milk at Costco for her coffee shop. And she often got stopped by people asking, why are you buying all this milk? Right? And she said, I have a coffee shop downtown. People would respond, well, I don't go downtown. And she said she would go into this defensive mode right away about, well, it's not that bad. And you got to get it, right? And what she realized was oftentimes those people were just like, their life just doesn't bring them downtown. Their life is their neighborhood or they're part of the community that they live in. And so that was eye-opening for her. And then I, thought about that myself. There's certain parts of town that I have to be intentional about going to enjoy because I am a downtowner. So I think it's more about how do we make sure we invite people downtown? We make sure that there's a diverse amount of activities, whether it's for young kids and families or people who are aging in our community, so that they feel comfortable coming downtown. Once people come and experience it, I think it sells it for itself. But it's just, help getting over those concerns that, for lack of a better word, there's a lot. It's easy to tell a media story, I think, sometimes about one violent incident that happens and then continue that conversation for months, right? When the reality is that violent incident was a one-time occurrence. Or when we talk about, our homeless neighbors and how, of course, they're concentrated in downtown, which is a lot of services, but it's also one of the public spaces to spend time. And so I guess maybe instead of being so concerned about what that looks like for those folks, how do we transition our energy into how do we make sure those people get the things they need, whether it's housing, jobs, behavioral health services, and really turn that into a focused area of solution.
Well, you want to bring more to downtown. You definitely do. And we see a lot of vacancies when we go out for our lunches and stuff. What would you like to see filled in onto those empty business slots?
Yeah, I think, a role the city can play in that is really looking at, are there different types of programs or incentives we can explore that would help support especially things like retail businesses downtown or, services that would come downtown. If you look, a number of the businesses that have closed or have left downtown have gone to other parts of town. And that's because other communities are offering different types of incentives. So, what can we look at within our toolkit to the city of Fargo? And I'm really interested in digging into that, especially this fall. We're going to be having a lot of conversations about incentives, whether it's about new development, whether it's about existing development. But, how do we make sure that we can support, creative entrepreneurs, again, whether it's a retail, whether it's a restaurant or a service of some sort. There's plenty of space downtown. And, I think that with the decision to have the convention center downtown, that's going to help too, because that's going to bring a new marketplace for businesses to consider investing because they would have more diverse and clientele throughout the year and such, right?
And like you said, we already do have a mix, like a really good mix. I mean, I went to the One Bite Challenge and I saw the different kind of restaurants we had. I didn't even know about some of them. So it's great to, promote that with people. So
well, and what's great about the One Bite Challenge is, talking to the folks at the Downtown Community Partnership afterwards, they did a survey of folks who attended and everyone went to a new place that day, right? So it exposed people to a new restaurant or something that, I've always thought about walking by Tea and Crepes, but I've never stopped in. Well, now I had a chance to go into Tea and Crepes, right? And that's what's great about not just downtown, but I think throughout this community. As a realtor, I had the opportunity that I help a lot of folks who get hired at NDSU. So I give community tours to help sell Fargo as much as them getting the job. So it was fun. Well, that conversation has evolved over the last 12 years, specifically from the standpoint of the types of restaurants we have. And it's not just downtown, it's throughout town. And I can't even keep up with the new restaurants. So I almost stopped trying because, there's just so much new things being tried out, whether it's food carts, whether it's food trucks, and then people getting their own storefronts. It's this great opportunity for us to have awesome food throughout town.
Yeah. It's fun seeing the food trucks turn into storefronts.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Covered a few of those.
Yeah, well, and it's a great like kind of incubator model, right? It's a entry point that you can try out your things. There was a restaurant downtown for a while, but this was pre-COVID, that they were slower a little bit on certain days of the week, so they actually started letting food trucks come in on Sundays to test menu items and to have a storefront to, again, as a way to support those entrepreneurs. And again, how would models or incentives like that look for downtown so that we can do that for others?
And you've lived in Fargo 25 years?
Yeah, 26 years now.
26 years, wow.
Yeah.
You kind of know the ins and outs, so it's really nice to see that with a young mayor.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This one is more of a fun question. So when you're not busy doing mayor stuff, what do you like to do in your free time? I know you've only had a few weeks as mayor, but you're going to be super busy now. So when you do have free time, what do you like to do?
Yeah. One of my favorite activities, I have a core group of friends and we love doing trivia. And so
we do too.
Do you? Okay. Where do you do trivia? Where do you guys go?
Swing barrel sometimes.
Okay.
Or
Junkyard does it, but we haven't gone.
yeah, Ice Window Brewing out in Mapleton.
Oh, Mapleton.
Yeah.
Anywhere but Fargo.
I guess.
There's a lot. That's the thing. There's so many fun
Yes.
places
Yeah,
to do
there
trivia.
is.
That's another thing I love about the Fargo area. There's so many free events that anyone can participate in. So,
Agreed. Yeah, our go-to is we do Wild Terra on Wednesday nights,
there
and then Vic's on Friday nights. We're trying out a couple different places. Wild Terra takes off the summer, so they do a patio, or I think, what do they call it? Patio bingo.
Yes.
So I'm not necessarily a bingo fan, so I'd rather do trivia. So we're trying out some different places. Sons of Norway, that's one we've been hanging out and having fun. But my job is to answer one question a night. My friends are much smarter than I am, so they get to answer the majority of the questions. But for me, it's just spending that time together. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite things to do. And one thing I was honest with my friends about was, the job is going to take up a lot of time, and it's going to expose me to a lot of people who I haven't interacted with before. So I'm going to get invites to events and be able to participate in different conversations in our community. But I really wanted my friends and the people who knew me before being mayor to hold me accountable to keep doing the same things. Keep doing what made me who I am to be the great candidate to get elected. And so I'm really intentional about making sure that I spend that time. And, I might not get to as many trivia nights as I'd like, but at least trying to make it as much as possible.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You said you really liked Bismarck and Fargo, serving both of them. What kind of made you swap? What motivated you to swap from legislation to being a mayor?
Yeah. Good question, because I get asked a lot. It's I loved representing Fargo and Bismarck, and we have a great delegation of legislators from both parties from Cass County. So I've had a chance to get to know them, and we've worked hard to try to deliver for Fargo collectively. And so knowing that Mayor Mahoney was going to be retiring as part of being termed out, I looked at the job seriously and thought about, what could I bring to it? What my experiences in Bismarck, the successes I've had in the legislation I've passed, the relationships I've built both here in Fargo and throughout the state, and really dug into it and thought, this might be an opportunity for a new vision of leadership, and especially around the level of engagement. One thing I'm learning as I take on the job is the calendar fills up real quick. So I even have some priorities that I talked about in the campaign that I haven't been able to even start on, that now I'm having conversations with folks about, okay, we have to lock in and secure time in my calendar, because there's so much activity in the city. We're a growing community. There's all kinds of great conversations happening, and those become priorities if you don't protect your calendar and some of those things. So, for me, it's bringing those experiences from Bismarck back to Fargo and getting to spend more time here with all of you.
Yeah.
So
we're happy you're here today. It's awesome. Oh, I'm so happy. I kind of wanted to know a little more about your time with NDSU. I mean, we have a lot of universities here. You spend time with NDSU. Are you hoping to do a lot for the universities per se? I guess you have NDSU, but yeah.
No, our NDSU and the other college campuses, that's what's great about, I think it's there 8 or 9 different colleges, private, public, 2-year, 4-year in our community. And so those campuses will talk about it from the standpoint of they have competition unlike other communities, because usually there's only one institution in many other communities. Think about a Crookston, right? There was just one institution there. But that's our opportunity of how do we build on those strengths. And I think we're seeing a shift in education, but also specifically in higher education about how are you more collaborative? How do you make sure that, the fact that this generation of learners are going to dabble more or going to want to try different things. And so one semester they might be at one institution, the next year they might be at another.
Right.
So can you make things more fluid for transferability? Because especially as a community, we in the end want to make sure whatever profession that person goes in or whatever level of education they complete, they stay here in Fargo more, right? And so I think there's a lot of opportunity, and we're seeing that a lot with some of the collaboration across the institutions.
Good. Sweet.
Yeah.
I know. I went to M State and DL, and then I went to MSUM. So it was transferring went smoothly for me. So I'm happy to hear that you're wanting to focus on that.
I'm also a transfer.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
I mean, it can be confusing. So it is nice to hear that that's something that you're wanting to kind of focus on.
Well, and we hear, I served on some of the higher education committees in Bismarck, and, even more so, there's a lot more students that, even will go they'll be from the Fargo-Moorhead area, they'll go to maybe a bigger community or a bigger institution for a few weeks, and then realize, I want to come back. So even how do we make sure that door is still there? Not just from the institution, but, there's the North Dakota Scholarship, and there's some funding opportunities that we wanted to provide to keep North Dakotans here. Well, they leave for a short period, can we open the door up to get them to come back if they're looking for a new opportunity?
Especially with us being right on the border. I mean, we've got a lot that you can swap statewide, which is kind of,
And I worked at, NDSU. I went to NDSU, I worked at NDSU, but my last 2 years in higher education were over at MSUM. And that was just eye-opening, and just seeing the different campus cultures and how I even reflected back on, if I were to redo it again, and had I even probably done a campus visit of MSUM, I more than likely would have probably ended up at MSUM versus NDSU because of the smaller campus, right?
I went to MSUM too, and I loved it because I toured NDSU. I wasn't totally sure if I wanted to stay in the area. I'm from Fargo. I grew up here too. So, but I went to MSUM and I got this job here in Fargo, and I'm still here, 4 or 5 years later. So,
and both institutions are great, and all the institutions, it's just a matter of being able to find your fit, right? And NDSU, being a student there, I always tell folks I was a good student. I wasn't good at college. And so, or no, let me say that back. I was good at college. I wasn't a good student. And so, it was a lot of my involvement on campus and navigating, getting involved in things like student government, my fraternity, orientation, making the connections, getting engaged with the community.
That's, I would say, half the part. Obviously, you need to do your schoolwork, but college is all about connections.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, even I was reflecting on how in just my 3 weeks as mayor, being in different rooms now, one of my fraternity brothers was across the room at a conversation about affordable housing. Another fraternity brother, or another friend from college, is running Moorhead Public Services. Another friend is a business leader in town and talking about some of their growth that they're doing here. So you still stay connected with those folks, and keeping those relations. You never know when you'll interact with each other again. Yeah.
It's great to hear that your connections are still staying local.
Yes.
But are you much of a traveler? Like, do you go and see different communities, kind of take things from them? What are you? You're a traveler at heart? Or?
Yeah, no, I enjoy traveling. I am, because so much of my life is I'm planning on organizing. I've learned that I love traveling with my friends who will organize, and I just get to show up. So I'm the friend who just tell me where to be, where do I buy the tickets, or where do I need to drive to. I don't want to make a decision about where we eat. I don't want to, I'm just along for the ride. But absolutely love to travel. And I'm excited to get out to Medora to see the library. I had an opportunity to go during the opening, but chose not to just because I love museums and I'm a placard reader. So I knew if I went out there, I wouldn't get to read things because everyone would be, kind of hobnobbing and talking and things like that. So I'm excited to get out there this fall.
Is part of your mayoral duties traveling to other communities? Like what? I mean, you've been in it for 3 weeks, but what are you hoping that you'll get to see?
Well, I think there's certainly things we can learn from other communities and things that we can teach them as well. I mean, again, there's a lot of successes coming out of Fargo. One thing, being someone who's transitioning from being a legislator to being a local community leader, one thing that I, talked a lot about during the campaign is, Fargo's image in Bismarck and Imperial cast and this narrative of, Fargo's so big and they're going to push us around. And the reality is I think what we want and need in Fargo are the same needs that places like Minot, Grand Forks, Rugby need. So I'm more interested in how do we build a relationship with those communities and those leaders to talk about those shared needs, whether it's housing or transit or access to local groceries, and how can we find solutions that work for all of our communities instead of it being about one community versus the other.
Good. I love to see it.
Yeah.
Collaborations, that's all it's about. So what kind of do you hope our generation, if we're focusing on GenZ3, what do you hope that we know about you? What do you want us to...
Well, I think first and foremost, I was your age when I started getting involved in politics or policy, right? And I think a lot of it is there's a lot of work that goes into making change. Government can be kind of slow to be responsive, and we need to figure that out to be more responsive. So don't get too impatient with us. Work with us and encourage us to move a little bit quicker if we need to, if there's ideas that you have. Because again, my generation transitioning more to your generation is very much, I guess, project based, right? Or have an idea, I want to work on one thing and then go do the next thing. Like, it's not about being a part of the same organization for 30 years like my parents' generation, right? It's about where can I do good here, and then I'm going to go over here and do this. And I think there's opportunities with the city, especially as we look again at things like the growth plan and how we engage with the neighborhoods. And it doesn't have to be a long-term commitment, but it can be a short-term commitment where you fit in. So just ask you to show up and be a part of the conversation.
Yeah. I know it was kind of hard. I'm a Minnesota resident, so I didn't get to vote for the Fargo election or anything like that. So it's kind of sad seeing not very many college students voting, but you got 47% of the votes. So.
Well, and what I'll be interested to see with that is I agree with you. I mean, in the June election, those local elections, those partisan primary elections generally are very low turnout, and that's unfortunate. But we did see 7,000 more people vote in this mayoral election than we did 4 years ago. So it was that was a 50% increase. And we'll get data back from the Secretary of State's office in terms of who those voters were. And I'm willing to bet that it was a lot of young people who voted and turned out, because at least the conversations or the way people ran into me and told me that they were voting for the first time or they're excited to vote. A lot of 18-year-olds, talking about going out and voting, So I think that we might have seen a shift this last election, and the key is trying to make sure we keep people engaged. Right. There's going to be a special election coming up in Fargo, determining if we're going to change our governance model, and then of course there's the November elections. But there's going to be a lot of important conversations around the school board in terms of their funding, and ongoing conversations about who represents our communities out in Bismarck and in Washington, D.C.
A lot of big things coming.
Yeah.